Hi, my name is Stephanie, and today I want to talk to you about autism and friendship. Now, before we get started, I did want to do a merch shout out. This is a design that I haven't yet got to show you on screen before, so here we are. The Autism Acceptance shirt. Again, sorry for the weird angle thing. I have something above my head. If I try to go up higher, I will hit my head, and as amusing as that is, I'd really rather not. So if you like that design and want to check it out or get it in a shirt, hoodie, something else, you can go ahead and go to my merch store. It is linked in the description box below. So this is actually quite a complex kind of topic, because just like with anyone, autistic people are all very different and have different personalities and might have different conditions or pasts that might affect how they engage in relationship in general, let alone friendship. So some autistic people might want constant communication and others might want constant breaks. Just keep in mind, not everything applies to everyone, because of course we're all individuals, and relationships, friendships, those are very dependent on the people involved in them. I think some people tend to think that all autistic people are in some way introverted, or that they don't really want friends or don't have many friends. We know as a characteristic of autism that we tend to have a harder time making friends. But that doesn't mean that we don't want them, and it doesn't mean we don't want connection, and it doesn't mean we never have them or make those connections. One paper I found outlines statistics from research that are pretty disheartening. 43% of adolescents ages 13 to 17 years on the autism spectrum never got together with friends outside of school or organized activities. More than half, 54%, never received phone calls from friends, and only half, 50%, were invited to social activities by friends. 30% had at least one close friend or a peer relationship that involved some shared activities. Almost half of the sample had no peer relationships at all outside of structured settings such as school, work, or other arranged social groups. In 3 studies, older children and adolescents on the autism spectrum reported more loneliness and poorer friendship quality. However, there's something quite interesting that this paper actually follows these statistics up with. In some studies, youth's perspectives about friendship differed from those of their parents and researchers. In Kuo et al.'s study of social activity during the summer, youth identified more friends than their parents did, and described friends as those with common interests. By contrast, their parents thought of friendship as having mutual benefit and emotional connection. Carrington et al. Found that youth with Asperger's syndrome did not see themselves as having problems with social skills, but their parents did. Several researchers measured the quality and characteristics of youth's friendships using standardized measures. For example, the Bukowski et al.'s friendship quality scale, Asher et al.'s loneliness scale, but noted that although youth on the autism spectrum fared poorly overall, they may have different perceptions of what constitutes friendship. Researchers concluded that friendship between adolescents on the autism spectrum may not be considered high in quality under the normative model of friendship, but may be appropriate for these adolescents with ASD, and just as valuable in terms of overall development. Carrington et al. Suggested that a professional's concept of what is important in friendship may be different from that of youth on the autism spectrum, and that this should be taken into account when delivering services. So while it is true that autistic people tend to have difficulty making friends or maintaining friendships, we tend to have more friends than the people around us think we do. And that's actually in part because we tend to define friendship differently than non-autistic people. So according to one of the papers, non-autistic people defined friendship as something that is mutually beneficial and has emotional connection. However, autistic people don't necessarily always measure if a friendship is mutually beneficial or if there's some special emotional connection. We're interested in the same stuff, we talk about it and do stuff together over it. Friends! Now, obviously, not all autistic people consider friendship or define friendship in the same way. However, I do think it's worth noting these types of trends that autistic people are defining friendship differently than non-autistic people. And I think sometimes trying to apply other people's definition of what friendship should be can be kind of depressing, because maybe we don't necessarily make a lot of friends that meet those requirements. But what really matters is how we perceive friendship, and if we value that friendship that we have defined. According to one study, participants had the most success in relationships in which their atypical behavior was normalized. Specifically, this occurred among friends who accepted and appreciated their social differences, and through common interests where these differences were not a concern. In other relationships, participants felt that they were expected to adhere to social norms, but found it uncomfortable and/or were not sure how to act in some contexts. Therefore, finding friends who did not expect this was a welcome relief. Participants who were socially isolated wanted more opportunities to meet other people, such as organized social groups, but were not sure how to access these. It's a pretty simple concept if you think about it. Finding people who accept that you do different things or have different ways of communicating makes better friendships. People who aren't going to be all weirded out and act weird about how you do things with your hands, or maybe you communicate via a device sometimes, or even all the time when you need to communicate. Just someone accepting that you have differences and even appreciating those lead to better quality friendships. And even if maybe they're a little off-put by some of your strange behaviors, being in activities where these behaviors really don't matter also helps these types of friendships grow. So while parents, family, and experts are all focusing on how to make the autistic person appear socially normal, be able to have these good social skills so they can make friends, because you don't want your autistic kid to be a weirdo. They won't make any friends. Autistic people are doing just fine making friends with people who are actually genuine friends and have a good relationship, instead of people who expect you to adhere to social norms to be able to grace us with their presence. Therapies like ABA have this goal to help autistic people engage appropriately. However, not only is the therapy itself harmful and exhausting and kind of painful for the autistic person, it just leads to relationships with people who make them more exhausted and don't let them really just be who they are. Quite frankly, by determining what friendship looks like by their own standards, non-autistic professionals and family have actually done autistic people a great disservice in one of their weakest areas while trying to help. So what if we need structured settings to engage with our friends? That doesn't make our friendships any less meaningful to us. While other people might look down on our way of engaging with our friends, this is a useful and working way for us to be able to maintain and start friendships with people and avoid isolation. So we've laid the groundwork in understanding that yes, autistic people do have a more difficult time at making friends, but we're not necessarily bad at making friends on our own terms and in our own definitions. We tend to perceive friendship differently. So let's move into some things that might help people engage in friendships with autistic people, or autistic people engage in friendships. So as stated before, normalizing how we are is really helpful to a positive relationship with someone like me. That means instead of being like freaked out when I stim, you might take that as information of maybe my emotional state or my sensory state, but you aren't like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing with your hands? I might start conversations in a weird way, but that doesn't really bother you, or the fact that sometimes you're gonna have to carry the brunt of initiating conversation, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily occur to me that you actually want to talk to me, so why would I start a conversation? Simply accepting that I do different things and see the world differently and not being freaked out by my differences is a great way to be able to start a friendship. Autistic friendships will likely require blunt and straightforward communication. We're not interested in dancing around things, working on implied things. This whole idea of like, I did this, so you should know to do that. Like, that doesn't really jive with us. We don't get it, and we're not gonna play that with you. Mostly because we don't know how, and even some of us who do recognize it eventually aren't interested in that kind of thing. We just want to bluntly say what it is and communicate honestly. And if you're into that, then we probably have a great friendship. Now, for me personally, I need my relationships, friendships, whatever, defined. I need to know what kind of friend you are to me. Do you actually even want to be my friend? Or are you just playing along because you feel bad? Are you the kind of friend who's actually an acquaintance that I say hi and bye to, but I'm not really supposed to share more information with? Or are you someone I can tell you like all the biggest, craziest secrets that I would never tell anybody else? I need those sorts of things literally said aloud and defined for me. This is primarily because of past situations in which I didn't understand the depth or shallowness of relationships with people, and I ended up hurt. So now it helps me to just have you tell me where we stand. I often need status updates on that same relationship because sometimes people just stop being my friend and I don't know why. This is actually a pretty common thing with autistic people. All of a sudden, someone that you were fine being friends with, all of a sudden just doesn't like you and won't talk to you, and no matter what you do, they don't want to engage with you. You're just not friends anymore, and you don't know why. What did I do wrong? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Who knows? Because then they're so mad at you that they won't even tell you, because apparently you should just know. But that doesn't help anybody. So while it's not the same for every autistic person, because every autistic person has a different experience, I personally tend to need those kinds of updates to our friendship if you're someone that I'm commonly engaging with and trust very deeply, because I'm afraid that somehow, for whatever reason, something has changed and you don't want to be my friend anymore. Now, sometimes we can have trouble modulating. Just like with anything else, like special interests, we can come across sometimes as almost obsessive. And so sometimes we can treat our friends as if they're kind of like special interests. We think you're super fun and cool and awesome, and we want to learn everything about you. What makes you laugh, what you're interested in, all your funny little quirks. All those sorts of things are just super fascinating, and we want to know all about you. And that can be kind of creepy to some people, for obvious reasons. Sometimes we'll also try to do for you what we feel that we needed in our friendships previously. So we might try to be there for like every second of your life and try to like solve all of your problems. And again, that's just some people, and often this phase doesn't last forever and can be super confusing. But obviously someone being super engaged with everything you do and say as if you're just a superstar or something can kind of come across as weird and creepy, and you might think like, oh my goodness, is this person like obsessed, like stalker level? And obviously that can lead to not being friends. See, we want to be around you, we want to talk to you, and sometimes we don't really know how to do that. So we might even try to hang out with you or be around you in ways that don't make sense, or start kind of acting really weird around you because we don't know what to say. We just like to talk to you and we like to be around you, but we don't really know what to do about it. So, hi. That kind of freaks people out sometimes. So if you're freaked out, please communicate openly. Some people will do this thing where they will decide, like, that person creeped me out, I'm not gonna talk to them again. And you give them the cold shoulder or tell them that they're creepy and weird and gross and you don't want to be around them, and just really hurtful things that makes it hard for autistic people to want to engage with other human beings, because it's kind of hard. And not only is it hard, but a lot of times we are very delicate people, okay? So just be honest, like, hey, I think it's really cool that we're friends and you want to be friends with me and I want to be friends with you, but this thing here can we take some space? And maybe you might have to be more explicit about that. What does space mean? Sometimes it might mean like, hey, can we at least be an arm's length away? And other times it might mean like, hey, we can't always talk all the time. I don't have that kind of energy. Now, autistic people often don't either, but new friendships, new relationships, sometimes some of us can get kind of obsessive. And I'm speaking from some experience on that. So, to the autistic person who might want constant communication and feedback from their friends, please realize that as much as your friends love you, their brain isn't sticking on you the way that yours is to them, if that makes sense. Most autistic people, or many autistic people, deal with perseveration, and that means our thoughts are sticking on the same thing over and over. So we might really want to talk to our friends, and while other people might think, I'd like to talk to my friends, but this other thing is going on and they move on, we might get stuck there. So recognize that your friends, their brains work differently, so it's not that they don't care about you. It's just that they need more time in between communicating, and when you have the time to communicate at the same time, then awesome. But sometimes we can come across as a little too much, and that's not because they don't like us, it's just because we're really excited to be their friends. And again, our brain is holding us on this pattern that other people aren't normally on, so they don't quite get it. So sometimes we gotta chill it out a little bit, try to distract ourselves with something fun, and remember that our friends don't hate us just because they're not answering us every 5 minutes. Then there are people who are like me, who often don't feel a need to always try to be in constant connection with my friends. I consider people I haven't talked to in years my friends, even though we haven't even talked face to face again for like years, or we might sometimes be like, oh, hey, hi, but they're my friends. That's how I see that. Unfortunately, this leads to some people being like, wait, who are you? You're a stranger, when I want to connect with them again. But sometimes people also take this as I don't want to be their friend because I don't always connect and talk with them and stuff like that. I personally am not a person who likes to constantly be going on and on and on and on and on and on. And I also have a problem with people as interests, if that makes sense. So sometimes I want to talk to you all the time, and then that kind of cools off. And it can be very, very confusing because all of a sudden we went from being like, let's talk all the time, let's be around each other all the time, to like, let's not do that. Like, why do you always want to talk to me? It's kind of funny because it can be hypocritical because we don't get it when other people do that kind of stuff. But other people who might have adjusted to the way that we're just really excited about them are like, wait, am I not cool and exciting anymore because you're not like constantly talking to me? So yeah, basically this whole like open communication thing is really important. If you're a person like me, like, hey, I still value you and think you're amazing, and whenever we get back together, we'll pick up right where we left off. Communicate that. If you're a person who's like, I really need to be able to talk with you all the time because that's how I perceive friendship, communicate. The other person might not be the same way, and it takes two people in this friendship to kind of figure out what's going to work for you guys. And some people, it's not great. That's fine, whatever. And, it just is what it is. But communication's a good thing, guys. I'm not good at it, but it's a good thing. Now, I do want to pause and make a note that a lot of autistic people are isolated because people don't take the time to get to know them as human beings and actually become their friends. And because of this, because of an issue with being able to make friends, of being isolated, of not feeling like people care much about them, autistic people tend to be easy targets for predators. For someone who doesn't necessarily have to have mutual benefit in a friendship, it might not seem odd to us that someone would love bomb us. And in that same respect, it might not seem odd to us that someone might demand a lot of things from us without really giving back. So a lot of autistic people can be easy targets in very lopsided friendships that aren't really friendships because of our struggles in that area. And that is something to look out for for your friends and your family as well as for yourself. Is this person talking to me because they actually want to be my friend, or are they wanting a lot of things from me that don't seem quite right? Anything that makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to do. If someone is trying to say, like, if you're my friend, you'll do this, that's not necessarily true. In fact, usually if someone says, if you're my friend, you'll do X, Y, and Z, they're not really your friend. They're just trying to manipulate you and use you. And it's really frustrating because as autistic people, we don't always necessarily get a lot of positive attention from people who want to be our friends, and someone saying, like, I want to be your friend, and then all of a sudden wanting a bunch of stuff from us. Like, isn't that what friendships are like? So no, it's not. If someone is demanding a lot of things from you, wanting a lot of your resources, wanting you to do stuff that makes you feel odd or uncomfortable, or go against, like, your family in certain ways, that's kind of red flags for someone who is pretending to be your friend, who is actually trying to use you. I do want to make a separate video on this kind of thing, but I thought since we were talking about autism and friendship, that this would be an appropriate place to make a note about that. So as for helping with friendship, I'd encourage family members and professionals to help autistic people get into structured settings where they can make friends, and let us make friends. Help connect people to those social situations where they are expected to socialize, and there's also a good, nice, clean end time so the anxiety can kind of lower and they can make connections in a safe and structured way. Remember, autistic people aren't necessarily terrible at making friends. We just see friendship differently than you do. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I found it a little bit useful. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy autism-related content from me, you can hit that subscribe button. I upload to this channel every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you to everyone who supports me here on YouTube as YouTube members, my patrons over on Patreon, and a special thank you to my Spaz tier patron, Philip Noah. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!